First, managing economy. Cuban oil depends on Venezuela is unsustainable. Venezuela will cut off supply scale of 13 Chavez was politically influential on Cuba. The action of Chavez would have the greatest impact on Cuba. That country receives more than 100,000 barrels of discounted oil per day and billions of dollars per year. That approach may be difficult to sustain in his absence. Maduro will be susceptible to domestic pressure to reduce Venezuela's foreign aid, and the plan solves Cuban dependence on Venezuela, key to economic and political reforms that will endure Cuba's stability. Premium 11, significant revenues from oil, natural gas, and sugar cane oil, ethanol would integrate Cuba into a global and regional markets within the next 5 years. Cuban authorities have invited the United States oil companies to participate in developing the island's offshore and natural gas resources. But U.S. law does not allow this. Although U.S. oil equipment and service companies have the capital, technology, and operation know how to explore, produce, and refine Cuba's reserves and satellites. Only Cuba develops its offshore resources will have the economic conditions to consider political and economic reforms. And Cuban instability collapses Cuban instability collapse causes Latin American instability, creates terrorist hubs throughout the Caribbean, and causing a refugee crisis worldwide. This is an order which will create instability and civil war. When Cuba possesses anarchy is a strong possibility. Thousands will flee the island. If these groups can export terrorist activity from Cuba to the U.S., the war against extremism gets more complicated, threatening the stability of fragile democracies, creating conditions for another insurgency. And Caribbean terrorism leads to attack on the U.S. They'll use bioweapons. Brian 1. Terrorist attacks can't take place anywhere the Caribbean is going to sit. 40% of the U.S. imports of liquefied natural gas are vulnerable targets. Caribbean countries are as vulnerable as anywhere else in the clandestine manufacturing and development of biological weapons and voluntary release to extinction December 8. Humanity is still threatened by the possibility of war. We may face even greater risks from emerging technologies, advances in synthetic biology make it possible to engineer pathogens capable of extinction level pandemics. Pathogens are self-replicating, allowing a small organism to become exponentially destructive. Engineering pathogens capable of causing human extinction. And next advantage is the environment. Offshore oil drilling in the Cuban basin is inevitable without U.S. technical expertise. Catastrophic oil spills are inevitable. Burden Clay 12. The imminent drilling of Cuba's first offshore oil well raises the prospect of a large-scale oil spill in Cuban waters, washing off to U.S. shores. Washington should anticipate the possibility of implementing policies help both governments stem in oil spill. These policies should ensure that both the U.S. government and the domestic oil industry are operationally and financially ready to deal with any spill that threatens U.S. waters. Deepwater drilling off the Cuban coast poses a threat to the United States. Washington cannot count on the technical know-how of Cuba's unseasoned oil industry to address a spill of its own. The U.S.-Cuban embargo complicates efforts to put in place a spill response plan under U.S. law. American companies cannot assist the Cuban government or provide equipment to foreign companies operating in Cuban territory. The result of a slow response to the Cuban oil spill will be catastrophic environmental damage. Cuba will drill oil in its territorial waters without the blessing of the United States. Without taking these precautions, the United States will second Deepwater horizon, and drilling causes catastrophic oil spill. U.S. companies can't prevent or mitigate this spill. Alex 12. The U.S. banning on drilling off of Florida doesn't affect America's Caribbean neighbors. The location is a big potential threat. The spot where Cuba has approved offshore oil drilling is about 50 miles from the Key West. A spill could potentially affect 100,000 pieces of mangroves and estuaries from the Keys to the Palm Beach. And Cuban oil spill will crush marine coastal life throughout Cuba, Florida, coastlines, and the Gulf of Mexico. Unique coral reefs and mangroves will be destroyed. Peterson 12. In Cuba, marine and coastal habitats could suffer substantial long-term harm, which could degrade entire population and habitats downstream in the U.S. or Gulf of Mexico. The primary habitats at risk are coral reefs, seagrass beds, and the large mangroves. Such important habitats could lose their ability to support marine life that depend on them. And collapse of the coral reef ecosystem collapse of the biosphere, Craig 3. Ocean ecosystems play a major role in building blocks of living organisms. The degradation of marine ecosystems impairs the plant's ability to support life maintained by biodiversity. Is critical to maintain the functions of marine ecosystems. Coral reef ecosystems are dependent on their biodiversity. Maintaining the biodiversity of marine ecosystems is critical to maintain the ecosystem services. If we kill the ocean, we will take the biosphere with us. And drilling inevitable U.S. involvement in expertise key to prevent oil spill and lays the foundation for cooperative relations. Well, Cuba and the United States are tightly interconnected by ocean currents and share ecosystem that a spill in either country could have profound impacts on the entire region. Between the United States and Cuba, offshore oil development is the only effective pathway to protect valuable environmental interests in both countries. Cuban government will continue with its drilling activities with or without the U.S. and marine biodiversity is key to human survival. Davis 3. Destroy all life on land, the ocean creatures will survive. Wipe out the organism and habitat in the ocean, and all life is doomed. And all life on land is doomed. All life comes from the All life forms in the sea, the ocean is a cradle of life that remains the axis of existence and locus of planetary biodiversity and the engine of chemical and hydrological cycles that create and maintain our atmosphere and climate. The astonishing biodiversity is most evident on coral reefs, often called the rainforest of the sea. Coral reefs are home to a third of all marine species, and Florida is a unique biodiversity hotspot. Alice 7. Biodiversity hotspots are areas where endemic species with small ranges are concentrated. The Florida Everglades contains one of the highest concentrations of species vulnerable to extinction in the U.S. The Everglades is an ecosystem in danger of extinction. Nadiadal, and Nindamanuritan. The hotspots are the world's most biological rich areas, hence recognized as important in ecosystem, not important only for the rich biodiversity, both equally important for the humans around the world. Policymakers and decision takers have recognized the importance of biodiversity, and this it has resulting in biodiversity conversation and approach which leads towards a conversation of biological diversity is good efforts, but should deal with biodiversity hotspots. And Cuban oil spill will spread to U.S. waters and some species as well. The deepwater drilling is inherently risky. Oil spills threaten the environment as Cuba proceeds with plans to exploit its offshore oil reveals the risk of an oil spill in Cuban water impacting U.S. marine and coastal resources is worrisome. And the plan states the United States federal government should authorize the licensing of American oil companies to participate in the development of Cuba's energy resources. And so obviously the plan is key to U.S.-Cuban energy cooperation, solve overall relation and regional stability. Failure to act allows other international actors to get involved. In overall 10. The United States is presented with an opportunity that might serve as the basis of the new relationship between the United States and Cuba. It holds out the possibility of intentional stability and development of a region. Cuban officials have invited American oil companies to participate in developing their offshore oil reserves. American oil companies possess the capital, technology, and operational know-how to explore, produce, and refine these resources. The creation of stable and transparent commercial relations in the energy sector will enhance the U.S. geostrategic interest, and Cuba will say yes to U.S. ventures. They prefer U.S. assistance due to technological lead. The plan is a catalyst to the normalization of the U.S.-Cuban relations and overall regional stability. And Benjamin Alvarado 6. Cuban officials will prefer that the U.S. be its major partner. Major partner in this effort. This should serve as an obvious point of entry into cooperation with the Cuban government and serve as a catalyst for promoting cooperation in this critical region.
Okay, first, if someone was trying to attack you and you knew they wanted to kill you, would you still want to be their friends after that?
Depends.
So if somebody was trying to kill you, you would still want to be their friend after that?
It depends on what the circumstances were. I don't know.
Okay, makes perfect sense. Do you agree that the United States has attempted to kill Castro and destroy the regime over the past 60 years more than 100 times?
I don't know.
So you don't know?
Okay, but now
we're
all Castro in charge.
If
you want me to answer, I'll go ahead and answer.
No, Fidel Castro or Raul Castro?
No, the Castro regime.
The Castro. Trying to kill the Castro.
Trying to destroy the
he's not in charge anymore, so it's totally irrelevant.
Okay, so, does Raul follow the orders of Fidel?
Yes, he has.
Okay, thanks. Now on to the econ. Onto the Venezuela. Okay, still on Venezuela. Is the United States the only country that can work with Cuba?
It's key too.
Okay, is it the only?
It's key.
The United States has the most benefits for working with Cuba.
Is it the only country that can work with Cuba?
If the cards,
yes or no?
If another country were to work with Cuba,
I just want a yes or no question. I just want a yes or no.
If another country were to work with Cuba,
I just want a yes or no.
Sure, they could.
So there's only countries that can work with Cuba. Okay, cool. Now onto okay, on your Peterson card, can you read me the tagline, please?
I have multiple Peterson cards, I believe.
The one on Gulf, Mexico, and Florida, and all those.
Okay. Do you know about where that was?
Yeah, it was on your environment flow.
this goes spread.
Yeah, on
What was the tag?
it was Peterson. It was
What was the time?
Cuban oil spill will crush marine coast.
Okay. What was the question?
Read that tagline, please.
Cuba oil spill will spread to U.S. waters and coastlines.
Is that the rest of it? Is that
That's the claim. I mean, you want me to read the warrant?
okay.
right, that's fine.
I still got Professor.
Oh, really? Okay.
On this one, can you read that time after we
Cuba
go?
spill will crush marine coastal life throughout Cuba, Florida, coastlines, and Gulf of Mexico, unique coral reefs.
Okay, Gulf of Mexico, right? It says it will crush Gulf of Mexico, and that's key, right?
Well, it doesn't say
Okay,
anything about Gulf of
okay.
Mexico.
Do you know what the the BP spill was at? What ecosystem it crushed?
No, I don't know.
Okay, it was in the Gulf of Mexico. So why didn't this impact?
Well, okay, well, we're not saying that the U.S. will never have any oil spills. We're saying that the U.S. has the capability of fixing those oil spills.
But
The
if this is the
question
oil
is,
spills,
why wasn't there impacts when the BP oil spill happened? If they're key.
if those
We never said that Gulf of Mexico was key.
It says right there
It
in the
says nowhere
tagline.
in the tagline
Okay,
that
the
Gulf of
only
Mexico was
reason-
key.
I'm not.
That's done.
You take it up.
Okay, which one of you is the one, Michael or Evan? Evan's the one, Michael's the two. Alex, which one of you is the one?
I'm the one. I mean, he's the one. Craig.
Creighton's the one, Alex is the two.
Yeah. Yeah, did you say it?
While you guys are getting ready, how many off is there gonna be?
24.
4 off? And then what's the order of case?
Econ, environment, and sound.
Sweet.
It's on the girls, 1AC.
What was the order of case?
Econ, the same as usual.
Uh, 1NC curse, there's There's 1NC.
Mm-hmm.
A definition removing selective restriction on specific goods in the economic has just broad effect economic life. And 3, economic sanctions mode of resuscitated in recent years prompted renewed scholarly interest in the subject. We designate the economic sanctions as coordinated restrictions on trade or financial transactions intended to impair economic life within a given territory. Select or individual manage such restrictions on specific goods, arms, luxury items, some foreign of travel there, and they considered to be economic sanctions. B plan violates the total list of restrictions. restrictions that pertain to specific goods. Oil, C voted. They make the topic explode by allowing the AF to tweak the embargo for cigars or left-handed baseball pitchers. The topical version of asked them to list the whole embargo or a large coordinated set of restrictions, limit the battle to preparation, which causes a clash in depth of education. And on to the CP. Makes the CP. The United States federal government should extend the Mexican plan for emergency response with Cuba, as well as increase drilling within the United States and territorial waters. The United States Department of the Treasury will not advertise, regulate, or find action to protect the drilling and safety of Cuban territorial waters. The United States Department of the Treasury will overall license firms to with the equipment and expertise to fight the effects of an oil spill to operate in Cuban waters. The CP solves. First, easing the oil embargo causes appeasement solves better. Sandusky 11. Cuban oil drilling will increase the embargo's cost, and U.S. oil companies will miss out on oil exploration. Some have advocated for exception to the Cuban embargo, permitting energy cooperation. The long-standing Cuban embargo is restricted with a significant purpose and should not so easily be forsaken. The embargo's twin goals for bringing democracy to the Cuban people and any of their obsessive rules have not been met. Thus, now is the time to lift the embargo. The economic concern of the U.S. energy industry does not want to change in U.S. foreign policy towards Cuba, and those concerns can be better met by tapping U.S. resources from more fears of Cuban oil spill can be assuaged through less drastic measures such as an oil spill emergency response with agreement of Cuba. Second, waiving embargo enforces oil safety solve. Stevens 11. Obama should aggressively use existing licensing authority to ensure the right firms with the best equipment and expertise are in the place to fight an oil spill. The Treasury Department and the administrators of enforcing trade sanctions should make clear that efforts to protect safety during drilling by the U.S. entities will not be met with negative regulatory consequences. The U.S. should look to existing laws such as Nexus cooperation for environmental planning with Cuba. Third, Cuba says yes to Nexus offer. It will solve Sandusky 11 spill response plan to be implemented. The U.S. currently has oil spill response agreement with Mexico, but now with Cuba to achieve the goal of the United States and model a plan on the Nexus plan pre-designation joint response team and communication procedure plan has triumphed in test simulation. The Nexus plan provides a guiding framework upon the U.S. and Cuba can draw from a more recent congressional report indicates that Cuba is open for certain bilateral agreements. Since an oil spill agreement of mutual interest, both countries should work to draft and implement. 1AC immigration show. Reform will pass now, top priority, bipartisan support, lobby pressure, West 7-11. Passage remains more likely than their undivided desire to kill immigration. The House is simply wrong. Immigration reform is top priority and there's no single cohesive opposition force. National offices benefiting in the reform. Republicans will slowly walk reform to that fact that they can simply hide. Even Republicans are ultimately going to kill the reform. They needed to get the Democratic Supreme Court on a murder weapon. The easiest way to do this would be to pass piecemeal reforms. Substantial change in the engagement against political capital. Oppenheimer 5-9. Obama's trying to show the absence of any U.S. plan to address the extent trade ties with Latin America or any sign that Obama will pay great attention to the hemisphere. Obama has invested little political capital. Political capital is uniquely clear to when it has support for immigration reform. Shimon and Palmer 6-3. This is strategic. Obama wants to see passed immigration reform, and the White House is the biggest stumbling block. It's noticeable shift. The White House must have a real relationship with lawmakers, asking them to support for something. The White House already recently reached out to Republican senators. Immigration reform is key to all aspects: hedge, competitiveness, hard and soft power. 9-12. The U.S. is a nation of immigrants. In recent years, politics has had a strong anti-immigration slant, but several prominent Republican politicians now urging their party to reconsider anti-immigration policies, and the plans for immigration reform will be on the agenda at the beginning of Obama's second term. Successful will be an important stop in preventing the decline of American power. Immigration strength in U.S. power equally important on immigration benefit of American soft power. The fact that people want to come to the U.S. and enhance its appeal, and immigrants' upward mobility is attractive to people in the other countries. The U.S. is a magnet. Many people can invest in themselves as Americans. This helps to broaden American attitude and view of the world of era of globalization rather than jilting hard and soft power immigration enhances both. On to 1AC shell A issue. Post Chavez pink ties 9, shortest pennies 13. The death of Chavez leaving a big vacuum in Latin America left will have the resources that Chavez has promoted his diplomacy. Venezuela's dire economic situation, the death of Chavez, and the absence of Lula do not mean that pink tide is necessarily coming to an end, but together suggest an unfolding much more diverse process of regional change than encapsulated by the rise of the beetling, softening embargo while the Castros are in charge of making profit to finance pink tide. Brooks 9. The big empanada in the U.S. embargo, which is the thing Havana most wanted done with any concession of the Cuban part, leaving the embargo won't normalize the relative but legitimize Fidel lionizing and encouraging Latin America because the economy is nationalized trade will pour cash into Cuban national coffers, allowing Havana to holster its commitment agenda abroad. The last thing should do is fill the pockets of a regime MasterCard there. On to impact. See impact. First, Castro-led pink tide because U.S.-Russia military confrontation walls are aid. Castro won confrontation with the U.S. is through confrontation that it attends larger than merited international standing. Like Castro, Chavez aspires to build and lead an anti-U.S. coalition. Unlike Castro, however, Chavez is a position of significant petro power. There is danger that Castro will advise Russia to serve as a guard security and subsequently draw Russia mark the card there. Go straight to case?
Yeah.
All right. Econ advancement, economic resilience. The U.S. economy has been resilient in the face of the shocks. GDP expanded, consumer spending impressive given that real incomes dropped, business investments grew. Despite Washington downgrade and exceptional volatility, the U.S. economy is not in danger of a recession. Relations. Cuba doesn't want close relations with the U.S. Then there's the Cuban government, French 13. Then there's the Cuban government as much as want to reduce tension with the U.S. They are desperate for the big thaw. Leaders don't really want to change the relationship, serve their needs better than they would the alternative. There's also a hefty amount of skepticism and pride on the Cuban side. I'm going to go back to the drilling advantage. Turn. The plan calls drilling embargo discourages Cuban drilling, makes other countries more appealing. Cross to 12 as 3 dry holes showed from far more exploration efforts will be needed at the present and challenge for a country the hurdles of American sanctions. There are many offshore areas competing with Cuba for attention and oil companies, particularly off the coast of South America, Africa, and Cuba. The case embargo makes it far more difficult for companies seeking to exploit Cuban waters. Dealing embargo uniquely causes drilling, confirming deadly drilling, damaging over unlikely accidental catastrophe. White 10. Even without a catastrophe, as basic metal leaks from offshore drilling rigs pollute. A geographical concern is that Florida Strait compromises a main conduit in the Gulf. Current and flow of the water that the Atlantic Ocean is filling the strait pose not only localized effect, the mere presence of offshore drilling infrastructure will introduce heavy metals and hydrocarbons. Go on environment. Where is it? All right. Yeah, I'll just sign it there. Yeah.
All right, so on T, you say that
This is really tough.
Did you get everything on page? I mean, just the income resilient and plan college drilling? That's all you read?
Yeah, relation.
Relations.
We didn't read a relations advantage.
No, it's not the relations advantage, it's like U.S. and Cuba relations.
Cuba does
Like
not
the Philippines.
okay, on this drilling advantage, we didn't read the drilling advantage. Right?
That's not the argument.
Okay, on the immigration, what you're saying basically is we need immigrants to, so we can have hegemon, so we can maintain the hegemon?
Yes.
How? Why are immigrants,
Because look, when we distribute visas and immigrants come over, they boost the economy.
How?
Wait, okay,
Jobs.
okay, no, because these people can, instead of working for other countries, instead of being in like the army or instead of boosting, or being a scientist or being like whatever they are, they become successful for other countries that they were in before. They come and work for the United States, they boost our economy, they boost our economy, they boost our army, they boost our navy, they boost our
Because
scientists.
basically we're just getting a temporary visa, so they come here, steal our services, and then benefit the country.
All right, then, onto the immigration. You say that using political capital, it uses political capital only if it makes a substantial change in the embargo. How do you know what's a substantial change?
I mean, I can define substantial for you.
A substantial change.
First of all,
he's changing. That's a big restriction you're changing. You're switching a whole big sanction of.
we're not changing the entire embargo.
No,
but we say that it's a substantial change.
Okay.
And if you would like, you can criticize the term substantial because it's to you.
All right, on your Mexis, what's the difference between that and plan?
Okay, we saw instead of actually funding Cuba and like actually giving them like lifting that part of the embargo or like lifting that part of the sanction, we just propose a Mexis plan with them.
So how are you going to do that without lifting the embargo?
You mean you just propose a Mexis plan instead
But
of
you would have, there's an embargo that says the U.S. cannot do that. How are you going to implement the Mexis plan?
they sign the license that says there'll be a Mexis plan with with Cuba.
Alright.
You don't change anything about the embargo, you just do the Nexus plan.
All right.
What's that?
30 seconds.
Is that it?
How does? No, it's not it. Oh, on your econ advantage, you say the economy is resilient, therefore we're not going to end up in an economic economy. What is that what you're saying? Never mind.
Do you need prep?
No,
No,
this is
no,
the
no,
exercises. This is an
That's
exercise.
Okay.
No, this is an exercise.
Wanna put your close up?
Yeah, this does. The order is going to be T, case, in the order of drilling, economy, solvency, then counterplan, pink tide, politics.
Counterplan, pink tide, politics.
Yes, ma'am. It's called 2AC-2NC.
T, econ?
T, oil, then T, oil, and, T, environment, econ, and solvency.
What's up with these?
Nexus, pink tide, politics. Is anybody not ready? Ready? Because we allow for oil to be lifted, this is a huge deal in economic life. The counter-interpretation, economic engagement is exchange of goods, services, capital, and labor. Rose 8, economic engagement interacts strictly economic. For instance, countries engage in international trade of goods and no voters. It's a double-binded loss for the voters. Either we're not topical or we're FXT, allowing for us to be specific. It allows for breadth over depth education, which is better for debating because we actually learn about different types of arguments and different types of affirmatives that we could deal with. And on to the case. Basic plan calls drilling, but extend Burr Clinton, Cuban oil drilling is inevitable. The term doesn't apply because oil drilling will happen regardless. Prefer evidence because they both are from the fellow for engineering and national security at the Council of Foreign Relations. And now to economy. The economy evidence they read is relevant to the U.S. economy. It's not specific to the Cuban economy. If Venezuela cuts off Cuba's oil, that leads to Cuban economy decline, which leads to Latin American stability, which leads to terrorism, and the acquiring of nuclear weapons, which will eventually lead to extinction. And now in solvency, we have 100% solvency. Benjamin Alvarado 10 says that this plan is key to U.S. energy coup, U.S.-Cuba energy coup. If they don't do it, others will. And Benjamin Alvarado 06 says that Cuba will say yes because they prefer U.S. technology and it helps normalize U.S.-Cuba relations. So don't let them say that Cuba doesn't want relations. And on to Nexus. One, to permit both economic engagement and Mexicans aren't mutually exclusive. And two, Mexicans can't solve only can perception of oil embargo undermines coup. Stevens 11, U.S. policy so it comes to meaningful conversation with the Cuba. The Mexican plan provides provides a joint response for rapid notification and communication. We have a long history of agreements with Mexico, and the Mexico is routinely monitored by the U.S. which has forced the embargo against Cuba for 5 decades, has no emergency response agreement with the Cuba for oil spills. Currently, U.S. policy create an atmosphere which prevents any serious level of engagement between companies and groups that understand where the drilling is coming from and how to prepare for the worst. It makes all of that extremely difficult to do. And 3, the Mexican agreements can't solve embargo, but blocks info sharing hatcher 10. The embargo against Cuba could only undermine effort to prevent or respond to an oil spill. After Cuba launches a drilling program, Cuba are eager to work to ensure safer drilling, but the embargo forbids sharing certain information and material that would be needed to respond quickly to an accident, but sucks and relief technology on nearby U.S.-made or U.S.-owned equipment. And 4, wherever counterpart can stop U.S.-Cuba relations, signal still matters. Vital 10, drilling off Cuba necessarily raises political insurance and surrounding the relationship between the communist nation and its neighbors. The Humboldt Act to formally place restrictions on U.S. code. This law urged the president to impose sanctions on the nations that provided assistance to Cuba. Through this provision, the one title traffic the U.S. allies have joined or uniformed the law sets was the tone of the accurate relationship between the nations. To this day, the complicated relationship between Cuba and the U.S. launches. And on to pink tide. One not unique embargo fails means Castro already gets profit. Stevens 11. Drilling will take place in Cuba at sites at the light for approximately 50 miles from the Florida coast. It's time to stop believing that the U.S. sanctions aren't just going to stop Cuba from developing its energy resources. They won't. The administration should move promptly to change U.S. policy so that we can realize the advantage of Cuba's energy exploration and protect the U.S. against possible environmental damage. So should a spill occur. And 2, turn pink tide at the crossroads, softening embargo to Cuba boost the U.S. cause in the region. Till 13, there are reasons for believing that the time is right for Obama and the Cuban stimulate. The pink tide that has been brought several left-wing leaders to the power in Latin America is not exactly on the EBB, but the hostile companies that built towards Bush have updated. The standoff over Cuba is an obstacle to advance U.S. interest business in Latin America countries. To the continuation of the embargo has the left to the U.S. almost totally isolated. And 3, no impact. Russia impact is wrong, not a threat, and miscount risk exaggerated. Graham 7. Russia has been demonized by the West opinion. Russia is less threatening in the U.S. than it has been in any time since the end of the Second World War. Russia does not have a champion ideology, intent, or destruction. Its military possesses no threat, and its strategic arsenal, which will be capable of annihilating, is more under reliable control than it has been in the past 15 years, and the threat of strategic strike approaches 0 probability. And now on to politics. One no pass to Pelosi, Rex chances more 7-9. Republican House leaders say that there are more daunting obstacles in immigration comprehensive than Natalie Pelosi. The minority leader may sabotage anything short in the bill Senate like comprehensive bill. Senator members intend to Democratic will vote for anything without a path to citizenship. Pelosi could be the one who killed immigration reform this year. And 2, won't pass enforcement issues. Bennett 7-9. One of the challenges for Republicans engaged in the debate over comprehensive immigration reform is that they run out of direction before saying no. Republicans who oppose the Senate immigration bill don't trust President Obama to enforce the border enforcement provision of the bill. One of the biggest fears we have about the Senate amnesty bill is that we can't trust the president. Fleming said on the House floor. And 3, fiat off the leak. There is no backlash on Obama. And 4, active congressional support for the plan. CDF 430, Representative Farr made a letter to signed by 59 members of Congress to Obama after the administration to expand its current policy for travel to Cuba. The letter encourages President Obama to allow all categories of permissible travel to Cuba, including people travel carried under a general license, by including all forms of permissible travel under a general license. More Americans can engage in people-to-people diplomacy. The pragmatic policy of citizenship diplomacy can be a powerful catalyst of democratic development in Cuba. Said Farr, this changes in the next step for surrounding a 21st century policy of engagement in the U.S.-Cuba relations. And 5, political capital not key. Other factors shape the agenda more. Dixon 9, how members vote is rarely influenced by anything the president does. Journalists' mistakes and outcome with actual evidence of presidential influence. Members of Congress' ideological learnings from her constituent re-election can predict how she will vote without needing to know much of anything without the president, despite much celebrated instances of presidential arm twisting. And 6, winners win. Nothing breeds success like succeeding Congress and press have long had over the brand president or like Reagan. The political teams understood the philosophy of power by increasing the extreme voter effect. Then the hangers of the will only way to preserve their dignity by jumping on board the train fight they could give the illusion of being part of the winning team. And 7, new immigration, not key immigration and visas are already increasing important to 5. The illegal population has been making do that. The basic population immigration age stops. Asian employees have already gotten what they needed. Workers on temporary visas has increased sharply. Non-American workforce may be significantly overstated. And 7, hedge is not inevitable. Hedge is inevitable. International norms means material power not key anymore. Weaver 12, pundits founding the U.S. decline inevitable, draw the wrong conclusion. Neglect on the border institutional context. Power is firmly sustainable. Hegemonic power is indebted and experienced through international organizations. And now on, go back to the counterplan. Conditionality, the voting issue, depth of a birth verification, one applicant is better than education, spread to 20. This is why topic is the same all year. 2 time skews to AC time allocation. They just try to kick off by forcing us to answer counterplans. They are just going to kick. And strategy Q, multiple roles make it impossible to leverage on offense for the piece of the to another. They already have the status quo and forces their critical thinking, forces negative to pick a quality counterplan that best competes with the plan. They have to be smart if they only go for one counterplan. And on immigration, they're offering here 5-9 card, which says only substantial change in engagement drain political capital. Their warrant does not support their claim, meaning it's just an empty link argument, and they have no link. Also, meaning there is no benefit to their counterplan. No benefit.
Define inevitable.
Inevitable?
Yeah.
Will happen regardless.
So regardless of what we do, it'll still happen.
Yes.
So how is drilling inevitable?
Because other countries will drill.
Because Cuban has it.
Because other countries will drill.
How does the perm solve?
Well, for the counterplan?
Solve the perm.
Okay, yeah, because we can do the plan and the Mexican counterplan both at the same time because it's not mutually exclusive.
Why doesn't Cuba want U.S. relations?
I say they do.
Okay. Explain pink tide and what's the link on the link?
For European side?
Yeah, the impact on the pink tide.
The answer
For you.
Yes, the answers to, yeah.
Oh, the answers to. It's the turn is saying pink tide is at cross-wording, softening the embargo to Cuba boosts the U.S. cause in the regime, and the impact is Russia impact is wrong. No, not a threat, and miscal risk exaggerated.
Hey, how much power does Pelosi have? What's her position first of all?
What do you mean? She's a Republican House leader.
And how much power does she have?
A lot.
Why?
Because she has a caucus that she likes to persuade to not pass the bill.
Okay, so it's just persuasion.
Yes.
But
And also
the cautery is that there's no chance with Pelosi in office. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. She's gonna
So
be the
then
one
is
who
it
kills them.
persuasion or is it she has the power to stop?
Yeah,
anything she wants?
she has the power to persuade other
The
people.
persuasion is that strong.
So is it persuasion or is it guaranteed power that she can stop
It's
something?
both. She has the power to persuade other people in her caucus
So that
to
she
not
has the power
pass
to
the
do
plan.
this with things outside the court.
I have just one more quick question. Did you ever ask us if we were conditional?
I'm assuming you're gonna kick out.
Okay, you assume? Can you assume?
Okay, then go.
Okay.
Are you gonna be unconditional?
Thanks.
Are you gonna be unconditional?
I'm not gonna.
All right, I'm gonna pause right now so that I can tell you a quick little story as to why it's important to always ask for the status of a counterclaim before you read conditionality. One time I pulled off just reading condo after we hadn't asked the status of the counterclaim and just assuming if it was conditional. Then it gets up in the next speech and said, they never asked if we were conditional, we're dispositional, it doesn't apply to our AF.
But what if that, like, what if,
You just assume?
yeah, because then either way, they could be, or they can just be unconditional.
So then what was-
No, it's
Why
not
not
just
just add?
conditional or unconditional, you could be dispositional.
That means we would have the offense on the counterplan?
That means that in order for them to kick out of the counterplan, you have to straight turn it. But because you did not, you didn't, well, in order for them to not kick out of the counterplan, you have to straight turn it. Like, that makes it unconditional, that's dispositionality. But the problem is, like, you had to ask them what the status was before, in order for them not to just, like, get all swirly and be like, well, we're not conditional. I'm just letting you know, like, for the future, like, you have to ask beforehand. Okay, I'm starting up. You have 55 seconds of CX left.
55.
said there's visas are increasing, correct?
Yeah,
How quickly?
can't give you a time frame.
So is it a time frame or is it amount?
And it says increasing, it's already increasing, so I would assume it's time.
Are they temporary?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Are you aware that the visas right now that are being given out are temporary?
No.
So do you agree that if they're temporary, then it doesn't solve?
But it is increasing.
But I'm
So
saying,
they're handing out more.
do you agree that it doesn't solve if they're temporary?
No, because.
Yeah, you can always get a new one.
But so are we benefiting, is it benefiting our country if they're temporary?
Yes.
Yes.
If they're
Because it
temporary,
increases in
how?
brain drain,
Because-
brain drain.
Because-
Because other people are able to come.
And it,
When they get.
Did you start your own prep?
Okay, stop, right?
Okay, I have you 7:15 left.
Oh, no.
alright, it's like 2NC for UTD, something like that.
All right, what's the order?
Counterplan, Pink Tide, and,
Counterplan, Pink Tide.
Counterplan, Pink Tide, and, immigration. Yeah.
Counterplan, Pink Tide, politics.
Do you want me to time you two out? There you go.
Huh?
Got it?
What?
Do you want me to time you two?
No.
Okay, ready whenever you are.
UNC, UCDQ.
They say remember that still does the entirety of the average race, the person still linked to the benefit, so the perfect can't solve, and so they say economic can't solve, like saying easy and all moral causes peace solves better, so asking limit and waiving the moral during safety solves, the benefit of the is clear, the Treasury Department which enforces human changes to make the clearest about it, so what the effort to protect drinking and safety will be nominated by the adverse regulatory actions. The U.S. government should commit to rigorous information sharing with the Cuban and model operation that already exists with Canadian and Mexican neighbors. Non-enforcement problem solves in the context of oil seems to them. Energy policy, the environmental protection of classic examples of the green market is correct to the U.S. interest and should no longer be acceptable to the U.S. Be based the U.S. foreign policy and the evolution of the sanctions will or try to stop Cuba from developing its oil resources. The path forward is clear. The Treasury Department, which enforces the U.S. Cuban sanctions, should remain clear to the effort to protect drinking safety will not be met with the adverse regulatory action. The United States government should commit to rigorous information sharing with Cuba and modern operation that already exists with Canadian and Mexican neighbors. And drilling to solve oil dependency. New study proves opening up more drilling could massively increase oil output. IER. The API Commission does study the reform energy consumption with McKinsey over the domestic production of petroleum liquids have increased 7.8 million barrels per day in 2010 to 9 million barrels in 2030. More than 800 billion, and the community of new government revenue could be generated by 2030. Countries be drilling from all offshore deposits of the United States. It is happened that the government rules and restrictions of oil industry in the United States could make use of independent North American oil imports and also conditionality. They try to state a conditionality argument, but they never asked the status of the counterplan. So disregard that argument. We are dispositional and. Now on to politics. They say that okay, first zero support in Congress for the plan. Gunman 11. It has taken years in the Senate to hold a hearing. Unfortunately, not a single senator will be able to explore the possibility of actually establishing an dialogue with people despite testimony from the oil industry representatives who recommended it to say makes much more than one considers supporting the opportunity call for opening up more areas in domestic waters or offshore drilling. Despite lead terms, mere introduction to the apps is net controversial. White 10. Cuba moves along with the straight drilling and generated by federal American policy response. Some U.S. politicians have responded by calling the laws of U.S. visas to place of foreign oil companies doing business in Cuba. Other politicians have introduced legislation that would exempt U.S. companies from the embargo. So far, neither partisan faction would prevail in the U.S. tug of war. And significant changes require political capital. Obama's first term proves. Whitehead and NOT 11. When it shows how the universality, the Latin America has taken Southern Hemisphere, as committed shockingly little time for the White House. Obama was snapping the federal to Europe his leaves to avoid tackling a politically explosive issues through lack of presidential attention. His results appear to be lacking. And they say this fiat sauce thing, they give no warning. They don't give you why fiat sauce thing. They just say fiat sauce thing. That's 4 words that there's 3 words that they just say. They don't give a warning for why fiat sauce thing. They don't state what it is. They don't give an argument. This is a silly argument that they have no warrant on. And they say political capital not key, but Obama must use his political capital to target opposition to the bill. He's pushing it now. AB 612. Obama would weigh into the fray, leveraging the political capital on the issues. To disarm conservative Republicans that will argue the bill should not be passed without it took new border security measures. Obama took direct aim at the motives of lawmakers who are opposed to the bill. And winners win is wrong. Leading scholars say so. Column 12. Obama's 2 massive interests was Boston to the Congress, not a strong leader. They thought that they have to consciously create opportunities that would succeed and that there would be more successful buildings and advancing tactical legislation. That was very naive and very silly. They've learned. And the president was using leverage too because he could quickly wane. And they say political capital not real or key, but political capital key to agenda. Obama does use it effectively, but it's finite and Obama receives it and acts out it regardless. Burnett 13. Obama sees himself in most individuals an inherent political pragmatism on same-sex marriage. The president carefully weighs the political consequences and timing. Obama has done that as president. He only gets a fixed amount of political capital here and has learned to rationing. Obama's a pragmatist, has avoided fixed positions. He's a political pragmatist who, over the past 5 years, has learned that he can guard political capital and focus on our highest priorities. He's conserving his political capital. He's being pragmatic. And league turns the case. The league alone turns the case. Partisan infighting ensures the plan to become a bureaucratic nightmare. Whitehead and 12. Countries' parties are views basically within the White House. There's no appearance of presidential coordination through the White House and the NC. These central agencies can now offer effectively off funds and intend to focus on more than limited set of urgent priorities. Washington makes these difficulties even more intractable. And CIR is key to all facets of leadership. Bush 9. Interest economic vitality, diplomacy, national security, immigration has been America's secret weapon. The United States has attracted a minority share of talented and hardworking immigrants. Many leaders in allied nations were educated in the United States, a diplomatic asset that no other country can match. 40% of the science and engineering PhDs in the U.S. are foreign. They're not foreign born. They're not even from here. And the background and any other security checks are taking far too long in any other cases. These other countries are taking advantage of these mistakes, competing for immigrants by opening the university to foreign students are providing a faster track of permanent residency and citizenship. And U.S. competitiveness of soft hegemony and great power war, Bureau 9. Economic performance is a strong economic performance is the drawing attention to the irregular relationship between wealth, technology, innovation, and the ability to states. Major shifts of military power balance, follow alteration, productive balance is the rising.